This is my audience. Ariana and Chris. Good afternoon. Today we are going to talk about how journalists aid God in valuing human life. Journalism is a field which can be used to uphold what God values: truth, justice, and compassion. A journalist has the ability to spread information and facts through mass communication to reach a wider audience. I'm going to inform you today of how journalism can serve as a platform for promoting, caring for, and defending children. When government fails, children suffer. Journalism is a tool which can be effective in exposing the ills of child suffering. For years I have followed the stories of courageous journalists who have exposed child suffering in third world countries when governments have failed. By shining the light of journalism on the plight of children suffering, such as refugees being orphaned or children being murdered, these journalists effectively help many children out of bad situations by motivating the public and also governments into action. Child suffering exists throughout the world, where drought-induced famine causes starvation. Also, children suffer when civil war erupts and governments fail, such as the case in Somalia. Journalism is key to exposing this suffering and maintaining public awareness by placing their own plight in the public forum through mass communication. I intend to explore several ways in which journalists have helped illuminate the suffering of undefended children. The first proposal that I would like to discuss is a specific example of how journalism has helped make the world aware of children's suffering. Journalism raises the awareness of children's suffering and elevates it to the international stage. On Tuesday, May 27, 2014, Reuters reporter Stephanie Nebahev published an article which quoted a United Nations source in Geneva declaring that up to 200,000 children under the age of 5 could die from starvation and malnutrition in Somalia. By the end of the year, unless the United Nations receives emergency funds to stave off mass hunger, this terrible prophecy will be fulfilled. On July 28, 2014, Huffington Post reporter Shukri Harbi published an article warning signs of another famine, lessons to be learned from the past. Harbi wrote, 3 years ago, on July 29th, the United Nations declared a famine in Somalia. The devastating famine took the lives of 250,000 Somalis. Without the voice of journalists, many more children would suffer and die in silence. It is through the power of the pen that everyday people are made aware of the suffering of children. This awareness stirs people's conscience, causing a debate in public forum, which leads to humanitarian action, governmental action, and public policy changes. Journalists use the bully pulpit of the public forum to raise the public consciousness and bring attention to their injustice, suffering, and the promises of public officials. I'm now going to discuss the function of the press in a democratic society and how instrumental journalists are in this process. Journalists hold society and government accountable. The International Research Journal of Social Sciences published an article by P. Ashraf titled "The Role of Media in Good Governance: Paid News Culture, Media, and the Challenges to Indian Democracy." Mr. Ashraf wrote, "In their watchdog role, the media can play an important role to promote transparency, accountability, and public scrutiny of decision makers." Mr. Ashraf further wrote, "Media plays a crucial role in shaping a healthy democracy and ensuring good governance." The very vital functions of media are to act as a watchdog over the powerful, promote accountability, transparency, and public scrutiny. In an article published in May 2006, for a United Nations Development Program, World Press, Freedom Day, and written by Pippa Norris, she states, a long tradition of liberal theorists from Milton through Locke and Madison to John Stuart Mill have argued that the existence of an unfettered and independent press within each nation is essential in the press process of democratization. As one can gather from what I just told you, it is the journalist that is essential to reporting to the people. Journalists publicize the suffering of children during ongoing crises. Eric Chin, journalist with the Gospel Herald, wrote a report August 6, 2014, Cloudy Christian Leader, ISIS is systematically beheading children in Iraq. Chris Mitchell, CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief, wrote an article published August 15, 2014, ISIS, swallowing Iraq, they are killing children. In short, it is my view that journalists are key components in how God values human life. Journalists report the injustice of child suffering. They aid in holding governments accountable. Most importantly, they give children a voice. God values children and expects us to uphold their rights. Take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones, for I say unto you, that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father, that which is in heaven. Matthew 18:10. Thank you. Thank you, and good night.